So I'm going to be talking about fishing life choices. So before I get into the video, I was fishing a Bass Nation tournament in Texas at Bois D Arc Lake, and things seemed to be going good in the morning, but they turned out being absolutely horrible. So, further ado, here's a quick clip of what happened. All right, now that you see the clip, look, it's on every angler to know what he's getting into, whether it's weather conditions, whether it's how much money you're spending during a tournament. So everything boils down to what you're willing to accept and what you're willing to get yourself into. So my thing was, I knew that I was getting into a lot of wind during this tournament. I didn't know exactly how bad it was going to be during the tournament. I just knew that I need to prepare myself for wind situations during this tournament. It was a scare. So, you know, I didn't get to film much. I didn't get to really do what I wanted to do during the tournament because the wind was going to be picking up during the tournament within a certain window. And when I got out of this cove that I was in for pretty much majority of the day in the morning, because the winds were calm then, I seen fish. I knew that fish were in the area, and I started fishing for them. Everything looked like it was going to be a great time, great day, as long as the wind was going to stay at least a minimum in that cove. So, fished it, and that seemed to be working good. And then I moved out of the cove for a little bit I went across the lake to an open water, to another cove, which, I mean, it was getting choppy at that time. And I knew that the wind was coming in about an hour or two from that. Once I got back to the cove I originally started, I seen it was picking up, and that's when I should have made that choice to end the tournament right then. I was on the south side of the lake, and the wind was blowing in from the north. I believe it was the northeast. And then I went back to that cove and started fishing where I did in the morning. And when I said, okay, I need to go check, see how bad the conditions are now, because I was seeing the wind blowing on the treetops in the back of the cove. And I was like, yeah, let me go see what's happening out there on the main lake. So when I get back out there towards the main lake, I'm seeing it white capping, and a lot. And I said, oh great, I need to get back very, very quickly. The conditions are not favorable to being out here because it's unsafe now. So I made that decision to skirt along the bank as close as I could, but as safely away from the bank without getting pounded into it. So I started headed out. I was going as fast as I could. I got exhausted from pedaling so fast and so hard trying to get where I needed to go that I hit my limit. So I went towards the bank as safely and fast as I could, because I knew I was being exhausted, because I was taking on water so much that it was going into the kayak, and I didn't know how much water I was taking into the kayak at that point. It looked like the kayak in the front was dipping down, and I said, I'm probably going down if I don't get off this thing quickly. So I get off to the bank, and you'll see the clip, but I get off on the side of the bank, and the waves are just pounding on the kayak as I'm getting out, and I get a big old bruise and a scrape on my leg, and I bruised my hand right here, and not good. I made it safely to the bank, but the thing is, I found out that there was another person that was in another cove that he didn't leave and stayed in that cove for like 5 or 6 hours before he came out and came back to the ramp. Well, while I was on the bank, I let the tournament director know that my situation, what was happening, and that I was going to stay there for a few hours to make sure the wind calmed down, and then try to get back out and go back to the ramp. Because at this point, the tournament's over for me anyway. My safety is more important than that tournament. So what happens then is that I wait around for, I think it was probably like 3 or 4 o'clock. I said, okay, I'm going to try to get back in the water and get back to the ramp. So I go back down to the bank there after I've basically pulled my kayak all the way up as far as it could go and wrapped it around a tree with a rope so it wouldn't get washed back out and get hammered. I pulled it back into the water, and when I looked towards the rudder, my rudder was snapped in two. So I've wasted all this time sitting there not knowing that my rudder was snapped in two on the bank. So I contacted the tournament director again and let him know that my rudder was broke and the waves are still pretty gnarly. So he took it upon himself, called the sheriff's department for me. They came out about an hour and a half later. They finally got out there after I was waiting for a good while. But I started grabbing my stuff and taking it back to my truck. It was walking distance. It was about a 30-minute walk. I didn't know how much water was in the kayak, so I just, before they came to help and tow my kayak back to the ramp, I just started taking some stuff that I could back to my truck and put it up. They came, helped me. They pulled the kayak off the bank and pulled it around to the actual ramp. At that point, I only had my tackle in the Hobie, but everything else I pretty much walked back to the truck. But yeah, the whole thing about this video is I want you guys to pay attention to the weather, okay? I tried to neglect it as much as I could during a tournament, and it almost took my life, okay? I know from what I've heard, 3 other guys fell in. They didn't die. I don't know if they lost their gear or anything like that. I don't know all the details about them, but I know that 3 other guys fell in. Myself, what you guys are seeing and hearing from this video, and then from the guy that stayed in that cove for like 5-6 hours. Look, I'm not trying to bash the tournament director. I'm not doing that at all, because I take full responsibility of my own actions when I'm out in the water. I don't put my faith in my actions to somebody else. Okay? That's not responsible. That's not being an adult. So when you're fishing tournaments, please be careful. Look at the weather conditions. Be mindful of what's going on and make those judgment calls, okay? Be an adult. Take your own actions into account, okay? Because nobody else is going to look out for your safety but you, okay? So that's all I got to say. I know this video is kind of long, but I mean, I'm trying to send a message to you guys that fish tournaments, you know, and it's not just in kayaks either. It's in boats too, because I had a boat and I sold it, and I know the boat world, and the tournaments are pretty similar in that fashion of you know, what's going on in the tournament world. So there's few differences there, but look, it's not on a tournament director to make sure you're safe, okay? Just take accountability for your own actions. Look at the weather. Look at what's going on around you. Make sure you carry a medic kit. Make sure you have a radio, okay? Or some kind of communication so you can get help if you need it. Make sure you have a float plan. If you guys don't know what a float plan is, look it up, okay? It's basically making sure that other people know where you're at all times, okay? Also, you know, just having that communication is key, all right? So without further ado, here's the video. Hope you guys enjoy. Stay safe out there. All right, out here fishing the first tournament of the year for 2026, and I am at Bois D Arc Lake fishing with Bass Nation. This is the kick off the season, first leg of the tournament of Bass Nation. Never fished this lake before. Glad you guys are tuning in. Right now I'm throwing a square bill because it's pretty shallow right here. It's only about 6 foot, but there's a lot of trees in this area. This is a fairly new lake, so we're out here trying to get it done today. Try to get on that leaderboard. So appreciate you guys watching. Stay tuned and hopefully get some fish going for you guys to watch. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, I'll give you guys an update. It is 8:48 right now. Had 2 hits on a spinnerbait. Looks like they're about 5 to 10 feet deep. But I had to get off the wind-blown side because it got pretty rough. The winds are supposed to be from 8 to 18 today with 30-mile-an-hour gust. So I had to come over here. If I was in a boat, it'd be one thing, but in a kayak, that's a whole different ball game when that wind's blowing. So I had to come over here on this side, seeing what I can find on the east side of the lake. Not seeing much. I hate to admit that most of the fish were on that wind-blown side, which I knew they would be, but I can't hold my position when it's that rough. So I'm out scouting right now, burning this time right now. I know the guys are on the leaderboard. When I checked earlier, there was one guy, he had a 20-incher, which he was in first place, so I'm trying not to look at the leaderboard because it'll get me discouraged, but yeah, whatever. I'm not seeing much out here. This is not good. Not seeing much on live active target here either. A lot of birds flying in and out here, which got me hopeful coming in here, but I don't know if you could see them flying around me. Oh, I see something a little bit right there. Is this like one or two? Ooh, what's that? That was something big. I'm going to try to get near these trees over here. Hopefully a little bit deeper where these trees are. I can throw a jig or something like that. But hopefully next time you see me here in a second, I will be catching a fish and giving you the next update. Alright, so came across the lake to this one low cove that would hold fish. Man, I didn't even have a bite. Conditions are tough right now. Looked on the leaderboard. Of course, I got 0. But it looks like a lot of people behind me got 0 also, because it's showing I'm in 23rd place out of like 80 people. So it's like, dude, I don't know. It's really tough right now. I'm going to try to go across back to where I was. That's where I see the most fish and most activity from this morning. But on the blown bank side, which is pretty rough right now, I'm going to try to stabilize myself out there. It's going to be a little hectic, a little dangerous getting across the lake right now. As soon as I come out of this cove, the wind's going to pick up pretty significantly. My tongue is getting cold significantly. And so yeah, let me pay attention while I'm doing. I'll catch you guys here in a little bit as soon as I get across the lake. All right. To this cove that started from. Looks like the fish have moved from the area. Not good. Also, I got pretty far from my launch point, so I'm gonna start headed back now. The wind has really picked up. I don't know if you guys can hear it. This is going to suck. My battery is running low too, so yeah. It's gonna be a long long way back. All right. Catch you in a bit.